Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission, City of Universal City, Texas, for November 1st, 2021. Get a quorum check, please, Mr. Casal.
And there's another one. This is the first.
This is the first.
Yes. Commissioner Dag,
Present.
Commissioner Garcia, Commissioner Fitzpatrick,
Here.
Commissioner Hannon,
Here.
Commissioner Smallberg,
Here.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Here.
Commissioner Hernandez,
Here.
Commissioner Carlton,
Here.
Chair Jackson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll be provided minutes of the previous meeting, 13 September 2021. Anyone have any typos or anything that need to change before we move on it? If not, then can I get a motion, please, on the minutes of the previous meeting?
Motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second. Motion.
Commissioner Dag to,
And Carlton.
okay, Commissioner Dag.
Yes.
Or is it you and then you?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Carlton.
Yes.
Commissioner Dag.
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia, Commissioner Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Hannon,
Yes.
Commissioner Smallberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds,
I'll abstain, I was not present.
Commissioner Hernandez,
Yes.
Chair Jackson.
Aye.
Minutes are approved.
All right, moving on to new business. We have a public hearing to start off on PC 550 and SU 009, which is a request for a specific use permit for a .1435 acre tract located at 222, East Lindbergh Boulevard. Allow a residential duplex use in a lot that is zoned residential Old Town per zoning ordinance 581. You want to give us some information about that
Yes, sir.
before we open the public hearing?
Okay, as you mentioned, we have a proposed duplex at 222 East Lindbergh. And as you may recall, this property is within the Aviation District. So the Aviation District Master Plan that went through the process a couple of years ago, this property falls within that overall master plan, that vision for the Aviation District. As you mentioned, they're proposing a duplex on a lot that's zoned residential Old Town. As a result, for our zoning code, they are required to get a specific use permit, meaning it's not approved by right, which is why they are here before you. We did send out, we noticed in the newspaper, sent out 26 letters to neighbors within 200 feet of the property. We did receive one letter in opposition, which I just handed to you. That resident is also here and has signed up to speak. So just go through the project pretty quickly. What staff wanted to do was make sure that the proposal meets the vision for that area. And one of the highlights from our master plan study was that the majority of those lots in the Aviation District were underutilized. And so between about 15 and 20%, meaning that the footprint or the square footage, but mainly the footprint, because a lot of single family homes down there, they were not maximized. They could have been built larger for the size lots that we have down there. One of the things that this proposed duplex does is it maximizes the lot from a square footage standpoint. One of the other things that the master plan pointed out was that The average square footage of those homes in that area is between 1,400 and 1,600 square feet. If you combine the living space in the proposed duplex, you have 2,470 square feet. In addition to that, each duplex does have a 475-foot square foot garage. The code previously required a 400 square foot garage, but we recently bumped that up to 440 to provide more storage area for folks and just more room for today's types of vehicles, F-150s and trucks and the like. So the proposed duplex does provide a 2-car garage for each unit. It does provide within that garage space area for the garbage can and the recyclable can, which is a good thing. We also wanted to ensure that they provided a porch, a patio, so each unit has at least one of those. One of the units has a front porch as well as a small patio area towards the back. They also provide landscaping. There's 33% green space or open space on the lot itself. Let's see, what are some of the other highlights that we wanted to point out? Each unit, at our request, the designer put in a storage area, which would basically take the place of the need of having a shed. So that's a positive, extra storage space for each of the units. As this is a duplex, as required by the ICC, the building code, they will be fire suppressed, so they'll have sprinklers and a fire alarm. And there's some other details in there that I did mention in your packet in the staff memo. Again, just to reiterate, this does require a specific use permit. So you will make a recommendation to City Council, and this will go before City Council on November 16th, who will make the final decision on the project. And as I mentioned, the applicant and the property owner are here to answer any questions, as well as him and myself.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. I will in a moment open the public hearing. We had a list, I guess that disappeared. Folks that wanted to speak about it. If anyone else wants to speak during the public hearing, raise your hand and people can recognize you. Please hold your comments to about 3 minutes or so. After we've heard from everyone in the public domain that wants to speak, we will close the public hearing, and then the members of the commission will consider the same issue. For that, I'm going to open the public hearing on PC 550 and SU 009. Is the applicant, the builder, or the whoever's building it present? Would they like to go first?
Sure.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to bring this project into your attention.
Could I have your name and address?
Louis Carrillo. My address of
Home address.
2705 Crusader Bend.
Okay,
I think I put the site address by accident.
that's fine.
So I'm the designer for the project. This is one of 5 developments that the developer wants to do in this area. So this will be a very first project, and I originally sold this lot to her because I own quite a few lots there, but I think being able to build this duplex will definitely enhance the neighborhood. So there's 4 more lots that will have a duplex similar to this one.
Will they be similar in size and shape, or?
It will be all different, but for the overall council will be a duplex for this project.
Do you have questions for Ms. Creel?
I have a question. So will this property, the landscaping and everything be managed by a management company, or is it going to be up to the people who rent the duplexes to handle that?
No, there'll be a management company, and the overall landscape plan will be proposed with some of the drawings. But yes, it'll be managed by the property manager.
And the photos are accurate to design and color and kind of what your vision for the property is?
Yes, absolutely.
That's looking at the layout of the lots on that block, it's kind of a strange lot in that it appears that there are two small lots to the side. Those lots belong to the houses on either side?
No, I tried to purchase the property on the right-hand side from Mr. Franco. He wasn't trying to sell the property. I think I spoke to Mr. Joe one time a couple of years ago on the left-hand side. But those are single families. So the one on the right-hand side is a vacant lot. The one on the left, it's a single family house.
Well, pretty small lots too, aren't they?
Yes, but similar, 50 by maybe 125.
And you say you're looking at building one more of these in this area. Does that mean on Lindbergh or just in the
One
aviation area?
right across the street on Lindbergh, and then one will be the lot that backs up to it on West Right. And then the other two will be in the West Right area.
Do we have any further questions from Mr. Curry from the members of the board? All right, thank you, sir. And I have a name is Joe Zaptok.
Eastman.
Okay. Would you like to step forward, please? And give us your name and address, please.
My name is Joe Eastman. I live in Converse, 313 Legion Drive East. I own the house next to that property, it's a single-family home, on 226 East 26. Thank you again for allowing me to express my concerns. First of all, let me say that I am in favor of some renovation in that area. There are lots, like they said, that are underutilized or vacant because the homes have been demolished because they've gotten too old. But as he stated, the lots are 50 by 125. 50 is extremely narrow for that size of home that he's proposing to build. In my opinion, they're just too small to support that kind of house. It's going to, I'm concerned about some things. The increase in utilities, I would think the electricity and the water shouldn't be a problem. I'm not sure how the sewer system is going to hold up because it's an old sewer system. All of a sudden, you've got possibly 8 to 10 people in that lot, utilizing that sewer line. Is it going to back anything up? I don't know. There's also going to be an increase in traffic right in that area. There's going to be at least 4 cars, possibly 5 cars coming in, go to work, going to school, whatever. My concern is that the way that I saw it was designed, there's going to be a driveway on one side, moves all the way around to this side. My house, with a bedroom is situated right next to that. Every day, that car's going to be coming by. Potentially down the road could be an accident. He drives into the fence, drives into my house, leaves in the morning, going to work, lights shining right to the bedroom. So 2 bedrooms. That could be a problem. Again, they say they're going to put some area for greenery or yards. But again, those are homes that are going to be utilized by families. They're going to have kids. They're probably not going to be able to play on them. So where they're going to go? They're going to go out in the street, and that's not a good idea for anybody's family to be able to have the kids out in the street. Again, like I said, my concern is the noise that's going to be generated by cars driving just right next. Can you imagine a car where the lady is coming by with the headlights day in, day out? I don't think that's a good situation for my tenants, or if I decide to live in that house or give that house or sell it to one of my family members. And like I said, my main concern is also, if you can imagine, I guess all of y'all live in a house that has a lot, right? Can you imagine your neighbor basically putting up a basketball court and all that, when it rains, where's that water going to run? It's going to probably run to my lot because it's gradually grade. My house will appear to be eventually that water's gonna run into there and possibly create a problem for me. Not right away, 3 or 4 or 5 years from now. What do I do then? You know, I gotta fix it because that drainage is gonna come right into my house. And again, that's something that's, like I said, it's not gonna happen right now. But if you put a house that size there, then with that lack of drainage, I can see a problem just being down the road. And that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Just ask me one thing.
Sure.
I'm not supposed to be asking you questions, you're the one that's supposed to be talking, but did you have a chance to look at the design of this duplex? Well, when I heard putting a duplex on that lot, I would raise my eyebrows too, because it's such a narrow lot. But I think the design makes pretty good use of that, you know, having a front to back design instead of side by side.
I did.
It's better than I expected.
He was generous enough to show me briefly what it's going to look like. We understand there's, like, let's say this room is the lot, right? A house here, driveway, then going to their garage, a house about where you're at, you know, cars driving in and out there. And like I said, the driveways, as I saw, it was going to be around this way. They would come in this way, park in their garage, when they leave, they back out, come back around. And then,
The designs I'm seeing, and if you look back here, the top right-hand corner, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Designer, but it appears that the driveway is actually on the right side of the house, not the side of the house that your property is on, Mr. Rispe. Is that correct?
That is correct. So
And I do not see a driveway coming down the other side of that. So there is no driveway going down the side of the property that you're talking about.
It's a circular driveway.
Circular in the front,
Correct.
but maybe I'm misunderstanding Mr. Arispe, but I'm understanding that he's thinking that people will drive in on the right side of the house, and then when they back out, they're gonna go around the back and then come all the way down the fence line on the other side.
No, the design is based to give the adjacent property privacy. So the right-hand side driveway is to go in, parking in your oversized garage, be able to back up and come back around. The front tenant, so that way in case he has pizza delivery, the delivery guy doesn't block the driveway, so he's able to go in the front, circular, so that way there's always the exit path of travel is clear. But yes, this project is designed to give the adjacent property on the left-hand side privacy as much as we can. The only area that will be just be the entry and exit.
Correct.
So the back side of the house will be facing his property?
The back side will be
No,
facing
the right-hand
the rear
side.
of the property.
Okay.
Backside of the garage.
Oh, the back side of the garage.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rubin.
because that still doesn't clarify the drainage issue that I would
Well,
potentially have.
that lot's gonna have to meet the same drainage requirements that every other new construction in the city has to meet. The city has standards. And that, this being new construction, they will have to meet all the drainage standards that any other new project would have to meet.
Okay,
Well, thank you for your comments.
thank you so much, appreciate it.
All right.
In regards to the drainage, we will present a drainage plan that will cover this property. So there will be no water run up to the property. In regards to the utilities, all utilities will be updated to meet the bathroom count and the kitchen count for this property. So all that will be up to date. Electrical, plumbing, gas, everything is to be.
Even the sewer lines and
Absolutely.
everything? So those are gonna all be upgraded?
Absolutely.
New construction. All right, do we have other members of the public who would like to address this issue? All right, then I'm going to move to close the public hearing at this time and move to the Planning and Zoning Commission consideration of the same item, PC 550 and SU 2009, the same product we've been talking about. Yes, ma'am.
I have several questions. Does this layout meet the masonry requirements of the city?
So it does. As you may recall, about 2 years ago, year and a half ago, state legislature took away the city's ability to require a certain percentage of materials. One of the unique benefits of the specific use permit is that it allows us to put some of those requirements back in place. And so, as part of the specific use permit motion, if you are to vote in favor of this, as I put in the motion, it would attach these elevations to that ordinance that is approved or disapproved. So they will be held to what is shown here. And as you see, there's a mix of materials.
Yeah, so the first floor is essentially, it looks like brick and masonry, and the upper would be siding.
That's where the bed.
Okay, you stated that they both have storage. I'm looking at the plans and it indicates that the back unit has a storage shed. Is that separate from the main building?
No, everything is included within the building. Let me pull up that site plan.
I'm going to show it to you.
Because one was listed as storage and the other one was a shed. Okay.
So the two white areas on the plan that are below the yellow areas, one of those boxes is storage on each unit.
And how many windows look down on the adjacent property? Because the people in the next yard are losing all their privacy from upstairs windows.
I would also point out that there is a vacant lot between this lot and the occupied house. There's vacant lots on both sides.
So if you look at the picture in the lower left-hand corner, that is the lot that faces the single-family home. There are a few windows on that side of the building. There are more windows facing the rear, which is also a vacant lot, zone commercial. And then on the right side, there are more windows, and that property is currently vacant.
Okay, my last question is, I live in the back unit, I pull my truck into that garage. How do I get out of that garage without backing down that driveway?
Sure, so what we did was we made them provide us basically an auto turn diagram that could accommodate an F-150. And let me pull up the, because that was one of our concerns. We wanted to make sure that we're not going to have any issues with folks getting in and out of that back unit.
This page, which has the color on it, shows the turn radius for the F-150 backing out of the garage.
So the bottom of this sheet is a blow-up of the turn radius, and then within the site plan itself, you can see that hatched kind of semicircular, or two hatched semicircular figures. That shows the turning radius for an F-150. And so they had to make some adjustments to allow for that truck on the back unit to back up far enough, so they lost some patio space.
Right. Yeah, what
Kind of along the same lines, how, is there a limit to the number of vehicles that can be in that? I mean, is it gonna, could we run into a situation where there's 2 vehicles for each residence, and then people are starting to park out in the street and kind of clutter in the street, or?
Oh yeah, of course that can happen, and that happens today.
Mhm.
A lot of people
Yeah,
park in the
all of
street.
those streets are that way.
And we allow parking on both sides of the street currently. So yes, this can accommodate, 2 vehicles theoretically in the garages themselves, and then a vehicle on the driveway. And then also, the reason we asked them to put in that semicircle, circular driveway, was to provide for additional parking for that front unit, so they could have an easy in and out access and not have to contend with the back unit.
And that circular drive you said is for the front unit?
Well, that's what the intended purpose is.
Okay.
So I see the back unit's 2-bedroom, it has 2 parking spots. The front unit's 3 bedrooms and has 3 parking spots.
Essentially, yes. On the lot itself, not street parking.
Yeah.
And is it the 5 feet from the edge of the building to the fence line?
Yes, well, the setback requirements are 5 feet, but I believe it's about 6 3/4 or something along those lines. So on that backside facing, or the side of the home that faces the existing single-family home, we had to allow for the air conditioning units, so you can see those identified there. Provide enough clearance for any maintenance for them to get around it, so there's enough room to include those air conditioning units and provide enough space or clearance. And they meet the setbacks on all sides.
And it looks like they're also providing bushes to kind of cover the air conditioning units too.
Yeah, we asked them to provide some landscape screening. It doesn't have to be landscape, it could be some other form of screening, but landscaping is probably the better option, and we'll let them decide that. So it's identified on there, and again, that gets back to, if it is approved, we want to tie this design and all these elements to that approval, so there's no questions, this is what they have to build.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to ask for a motion on this item. For the members of the public, for your information, all motions for this committee are made in the affirmative. And then we either vote yes or no to the affirmative action, to the affirmative statement. It ends the confusion over whether you're voting for a negative or against a positive. So the motion will be for approval. And the second, I hope, will be for approval. And then we will either vote for it or against it. Could I get a motion on this item? Okay.
Motion to approve specific use permit PC 550 and SU 009. Per section 4-5-54 of the zoning code, no specific use should be recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission unless it has made findings based upon the evidence presented at the public hearing to support the conclusions identified in section 4-5-54-4 of the zoning code. Having done so, I therefore move to approve PC 550 and SU 009 to grant a specific use permit to Pamela, I'm going to butcher the name, Azawala, property owner, to allow a residential duplex in the R-OT Old Town Residential District with the following conditions. The construction of the duplex at 222 East Lindbergh Boulevard shall be consistent with the approved site plan and architectural evaluation, architectural elevation.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion to approve this item and a second to approve. Could I, do we have further discussion with the members of the commission on this item? Any further questions? Let's have a vote, please, Mr. Casale.
Commissioner Carlson.
Aye.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Aye.
Commissioner Day.
Aye.
Commissioner Garcia. Commissioner Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Commissioner Hannon.
Aye.
Commissioner Smallberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Hernandez.
Aye.
Chair Jackson.
Aye.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. All right, going to move on to the second item on our new business. There's PC 551 and ZC 228, which is a request for a text amendment to the following portion of the Code of Ordinance of the City of Gilbert, Texas, to modify the fence requirements to provide residential trash enclosure requirements. Can you give us some background on this before we have to open the public hearing? Please, Mr. Casale.
Just remind you of the November 16th meeting, the city council.
Yes, Richard. Could you give us some information on this, please?
Actually, let me load this up. staff memo. This is a proposed text amendment to the code that would provide folks with the option of either placing their recyclable container in garage or trash container out of public view, most likely in the garage or behind an existing fence in the side yard or in the rear yard. If they choose not to do that, then we provided some guidance on potential trash enclosure, some type of screening. The screening can be landscaped, it can also be made of material. And again, this is really an option for those folks. Currently, the code does not require you to take your cans inside your garage. There are rules for keeping it off the curb or near the street. You can place those containers 24 hours before pickup, and then they have to be pulled back 24 hours after pickup. So essentially they have 48 to 72 hours to have their cans outside if they choose. This, again, would require those cans, not during pickup time, to be out of public view. In the staff memo on the screen here are some options as to how the cans might be screened. We provided in the ordinance the measurements, the dimensions that are required. So 4.5 feet high, a width of 3.5 feet max, and then a depth between 2 feet 4 inches and 5 feet. And so this type of fencing would not require a permit. So if folks decided to go this way, they could just install it. That is really it in a nutshell. And we provided you with the red line proposed text amendment, the ordinance, that identifies the existing code requirements, and then everything in red is the changes of the proposal. And that also includes these photos that are provided here. One thing I'd like to point out is that for folks who are going to have alley pickup, it is not required. Let me pull that photo up in the ordinance. So this photo here, a lot of folks that have alley pickup, they place their containers in this type of structure. One thing that they will not be required to keep their cans out of public view in the alley, but what they will need to do is remove the cans from the structure during pickup time, because the automated side loaders, they need a certain amount of clearance around the cans in order for them to pick them up and then replace them. So that's something that we'll probably have to remind folks.
So it was my understanding with the new waste management contract that basically alley pickup was going away, that these machines would not function in the alleys that we have. Is that not correct?
By and large, that is correct. There are a handful of alleys that will remain in service.
Right, the criteria for alley pickup was they had to have a paved alley and a rear entry garage. And we do have some subdivisions that were built exactly that way. In other words, they don't have a front stoop, if that's what you want to call it, or a garage where they can store things in the front. And some of them don't even have fences because they're joined walls, right? So for them, it makes sense that their trash service needs to stay in the back where their garage is and with a paved alley.
So this ordinance would go into effect for the entirety of Universal City, retroactive. Everybody's going to be required to have it.
They're going to have the option. They just cannot have their cans in the public view outside of their pickup times.
What are the dimensions of these cans?
Yeah, that they're going to be providing.
So I don't have the specific dimensions, but we did measure them in order to create the dimensions.
Right outside the building, can we
Yeah,
get one in?
there's two out there on the side of the building. So we measured those cans, and the dimensions provided will accommodate those size cans.
So we're talking essentially both cans 3 feet, 3.5 feet.
Yeah, side by side, they're just under 3 foot, 3.5 feet. We allowed a few inches of extra space.
So it would require, I'll talk loud with you, how about that?
Green is on, red is off.
There we go. So it would require a substantial amount of garage space, right? Because I'm just thinking
Substantial?
in my case, like I have a 2-car garage that is like, with a car pulled in there, like on either side, it's like a struggle to get a car door open all the way.
Right.
So
So,
most people have round trash cans, and they don't really know what the dimensions are because they're round. So the bottom of these is not much wider than a round trash can. What they really are is taller. So you can probably still fit them in there. Again, this is an option. If you can't fit them in the garage, or you can't get them behind the fence, then you have an option of doing a trash enclosure. Again, it's an option, it's not a mandate.
Is
For a
there,
trash enclosure.
is there any sort of a fine or violation for not picking one of those options?
if it's in the public view, outside of the pickup window, then yes, we would go through the normal code compliance.
Okay.
Notification.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
Sure. Well, I don't know about the fine, because it's a summons and the judge would issue that.
Oh, okay.
But there are many steps prior to getting to that.
Okay.
And so first would be a door tag to let them know, and then they can give us a call. Usually we just have to, people don't know.
Okay.
And then the next step is a formal letter, and usually it goes 3 steps before we issue the summons and schedule a curfew.
Okay.
But by then, most code compliance issues have been resolved.
So I have another question. Why now?
We have a new contract with Waste Management and new cans. Thought this was a good time.
I want to make sure I'm clear here. This is not a grandfather issue. This applies to all homes in Universal City, retroactive.
Yes. Yeah, it'll go into effect and be effective
When
at
that,
that point.
when the ordinance goes
Correct.
into
Yes.
effect.
Was there any, for the examples given, was there any sort of estimated cost associated with those, so like residents could?
Yeah, so I know it's kind of hard to tell on the screen, but the lattice, so a sheet of 4x6 lattice is $40. Sometimes, that was the Home Depot over here. Sometimes if you want to actually have, like one of them has a wood flooring, right, that's just a few tennis pickets. Those usually run about $5 each. Again, we're not saying that you have to have a wooden floor, you have to have a paver floor, you can have an earthen. You can use vinyl, you can use landscaping, you can use plastic, you can use, all kinds of boards and materials that are available. And you can see that some of them, for those who want a higher end trash enclosure, they actually sell them. I think the one on the middle left is a closure that is just for trash cans. So during the week, you just open it the top and put your stuff in there, and when you want to pull them out, you open the bottom doors. Those run about $300. So you figure you can spend anywhere from $40 to $300 or more. Or you can plant shrubs.
Okay, I think we got most of the information out at this point. Now let's open the public hearing and let's hear from the folks that want to address it. I'm going to open the public hearing on, right. Public hearing on PC 551 and ZC 228, which is the request for a text amendment addressing residential trash enclosure requirements. Again, the public hearing is open. I have 2 people that have signed up to speak. I realize a lot of information has changed hands since they signed up, so just ask Mr. Bernard Raval, would you like to speak, sir?
First of all, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. Split that distance, 6. Okay? That's the difference in between houses where I live in Balboa. It's probably shorter other places. I don't know exactly what the city ordinance is. That's my bedroom window. This is the front fence line of the house adjacent to me. Okay, let's have some shrimp on a hot Texas day. Throw the shrimp parts in that trash can there and let or breathe that when the window's open on that hot summer night. Okay, that hasn't been included. No consideration for distance of these trash cans with the neighbors have been considered. Okay, that's one thing. Number two is there's not a specific statement that says that the people who currently have alleys, which is approximately a third, I believe, of the people in University, can maintain their trash cans, at least not during pickup time in the alleyway. The ordinance actually says, or change, a resident trash enclosure is mandatory. Is mandatory. Okay. So basically, I understand that we're moving to this new system. I understand that if we go to the alleyway pickup, even for the people that are going to have automated enclosures with this trash truck rolling down this alleyway, I cannot see my 80-year-old neighbor with Parkinson's, her picking up that trash can, putting it out for the automated truck to pick it up. There's some disconnect here between essentially what's going to be mandated and what's practical. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Rowell. And the name I have is Kim Englehart.
Englehart.
Okay.
Kim Englehart,
Englehart, I'm
736
sorry.
Garden Meadow.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Commissioner, members of the commission, the purpose of this ordinance, reading through it, says to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. A, to help prevent conditions that may result in harboring of undesirable pests and rodents. How is building a wall going to affect the rodent population? And when you make it too difficult to get to the trash can, from the house to the outside pail, I can guarantee you that people are going to keep a smaller pail right there on the driveway or right outside the door or wherever is convenient to them, and that's where they're going to keep their trash. And then on trash day, they will transfer it to the trash bin and roll it out to the street. And I can tell you what that's going to do for the rodent population. Conditions that are unsightly and therefore detract from the aesthetic appearance of the community. I don't know when Mr. Quesada started establishing community standards, but I know in my neighborhood, we're perfectly fine with trash cans sitting up on the top edge of the driveway. For a person to take full advantage of the 24-hour window that Mr. Quesada was talking about, they set the trash out 24 hours beforehand, then they leave it out, bring it in 24 hours later, that's 48 hours. Our neighborhood, we got pick up on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. That's 3 48-hour windows. That leaves 48 hours unaccounted for. So that is, if you fill out the whole 24-hour window, when you bring it in, there's only going to be 48 hours left. It's going to be 120 hours that the pails can be out on the street, at least one pail. Okay, there'll be one pail out on the street for every time for about 120 hours, even 48 hours with no pails on the street. And he's concerned about what's going to happen about during those 48 hours. For the other 120 hours, we're going to have ugly pails sitting out on the street. And we want to talk about aesthetics. And conditions which may otherwise constitute a safety hazard. I'm glad you put that in there, sir. Have you ever looked at the houses? Do you know that some of the houses in Old Cimarron and in Meadow Oaks have fences that come all the way up to the front edge of the house? So there is no side of the house that you can put this next to. That means you either put it in the garage or you put your pails behind the gate. So if you've had a house for 45 years, there's no room in the garage. Okay, I know that. I can tell you what my parents' house looks like. Okay, the gate, a lot of times is over a drainage area. It's rocky, it's uneven, sometimes it may be dark. Now, elderly people often have problems with balance, mobility, and depth perception. Yet we would have them walking over uneven surfaces and fumbling with the gate latch, not just on trash day, but on every single time that they go to put out the household trash. Now, I know we all like to pretend that this stage of life does not exist. But exactly how many times a day does an incontinent person put out the trash? Their can should be as close as practicable to the front door. If someone isn't disabled enough to qualify for door service, what alternatives are there going to be? Are there going to be ADA exceptions to the ordinance? The safest way to handle a trash bin is a straight path over one smooth surface. And that means parking it up at the top edge of the driveway. So I'm asking you, what exactly is the purpose of this ordinance? Thank you.
I don't have anyone else signed up to speak, but this time I'd like to welcome anyone else present to address the issue if you'd like to. Please give me your name and address, sir.
Van Matthews, 106 Surrey Code. Question I have is how far from the property line is this enclosure allowed to be? My property is 5 feet from the property line. So can I build closer to make it 2 feet or 3 feet from the property line? Thank you.
Anyone else like to address the issue? At this time, I'm going to close the public hearing and move on to the consideration of this item by the planning and zoning commission. Ms. Bain.
Okay, so it says in view from the street. Is that 90-degree viewing? Or if someone is 2 houses down and can see up to the side of my house, does that count?
If you can see it from the street, it's in
From anywhere on the street?
that's considered public view, yes.
So you'd have to have multiple sides.
For those of us on a cul-de-sac that have, if we were to put a lattice that y'all had up there, it would actually have to be on 2 sides, because from the street on the way into the cul-de-sac, you can still see down to the side of my house. So I'm going to be required to build a multifaceted enclosure so that it can't be seen from any street.
If you choose not to place it in the garage, yes. It needs to not be viewed from the public street. Public view. And so in answer to the last gentleman's question, this diagram identifies the area where the trash enclosure needs to be. Basically, it's the front yard wall. So the easiest way to explain it is, for most folks, their garage wall, the garage door, is the closest wall towards the street. So that line extending out to your side yard is 5 feet as you can go.
From my side of my house to the property line is 5 feet. So how far can I build the structure out
So
to the property line?
Are you talking your side yard or your front yard?
Side yard.
Okay, so the side yard, you just have to meet these dimensions. So you can build it within your side yard, closer to your.
So I can go be 3 feet from my property line.
But that means in order to get the can out, you would have to pull your can over the property line to get it back up to the driveway. You said they were 3 feet?
Not necessarily.
Okay, so you can't assume that everybody's gonna put their trash can, if this is the wall, that they're gonna put them this way. Most people will probably put them this way. It's a much smaller distance this way. Some people may even stack them this way. So it's not that wide. It doesn't have to be 6 feet wide. It can be 3.5 feet wide and just a little longer down the side.
Well, I don't have the option because I have electric circuit boxes, gas mains and things that come in. I'm one of the few houses in my neighborhood that has a flange that sticks out on the side of the garage, which would be perfect, although I would still have to build a sidewalk because you could see it when you came down, whatever, Manor side, coming down that little street. Neither of my neighbors have the option. On the other side of my house, the fence comes all the way up to the front of the house. So he has 5 feet from the side of his house. He too has gas mains, electrical boxes. The neighbors on the other side have a tremendous incline which goes to the French drain system that takes it to the gully. So they don't have the option of building a structure because they would have to pull uphill to get their cans out. So some homes don't have the option. You're telling them they must be in the garage. And I've seen the pictures of their cars in their garages with them trying to fit cans, and it's not going to work. So they will have to pull from their backyard out the far side, up through the gate, across their front yard, out the driveway. And I don't want to insult them because they're here, but neither one of them is a spring chicken. And walking across a front lawn area is not a safe activity at all times of year in Universal City. When it's raining and our grounds are flooded, you can't walk across the grounds. We already have drainage issues. It's why we have French drains in our neighborhood. So it's nice to say people have the option, but a lot of houses don't have the option because of the way they were constructed. I could possibly pay to have my gas lines moved and the electrical circuits moved, but for a trash can, it seems a little bit excessive. The whole world has trash. These are all going to look the same, so there's already uniformity. You drive up and down my street now, there are no two cans that look the same. They're all, that's how we know our can. I've got the green one, they've got the blue one, they've got the red one. Now they're all going to look the same. So if they're all parked along the side of the house, what does it matter? We're not an HOA, we're a city.
I also have a question about the easements, because I know on the cul-de-sacs, where I live, and our property lines are very narrow, that part of the property is supposed to be considered an easement for utilities, like when the electrical companies have to drive the trucks up there and everything. So the side of the house that is available for me to put my trash cans on, which are where my trash cans are parked and have been parked for 20 plus years, if I were to put up any type of an enclosure, then I would be blocking the utility easement.
Yeah, we would not consider that a permanent structure.
But in order for if the utility goes out, if the electricity goes out, which there's a power line, power box right out the corner of my house, of the back of my house, and more than once, these big electrical trucks have to drive up through the yards to get back there. I would have to move that structure or take that structure down, possibly in a driving rainstorm, which was the last time that they had to come and replace that electrical box. How is that supposed to work?
So some people already have that with their entire fence line, and what they have is they have removable panels. It's in the ground, you just lift it up and move it out of the way. They're all over the city. Lots of people have easements. They have removable panels on their fence. You can make a removable panel for the enclosure. Now, again, remember, an enclosure is an option. It's not a mandatory. There are other means that people can use to hide their stuff. Can we go house by house and meet every circumstance? Probably not, but we'll deal with those exclusions as they come up. This is not a one-size-fits-all, and this is not a house-by-house, neighborhood by neighborhood, yard by yard decision. If people certainly can't make it, we will work with them to help them find a resolution. But again, we're not going to solve everybody's problems.
I don't think it's reasonable to make a ruling based on the exceptions. My home is one of the ones that is losing alley pickup, which I really enjoyed my alley pickup, and I understand that we need to move forward. But I also feel like I don't want to have a neighborhood filled with trash cans that are visible all along the street. I drove through Live Oak this weekend, specifically just to kind of look through the aesthetics of the neighborhood. And for me, it was distracting. If I were looking to buy a home in one of those neighborhoods, that would turn me off. We are going to have to move our trash cans. We have the ability to put them in our backyard, but we're going to have to move how we have them and make some adjustments to our landscaping, and that's fine. But I don't think we should make a ruling because of the exceptions.
Can I ask a question about the trash service itself? So when this first came about, I was trying to figure out what to expect, because I'm one of those that I have alley pickup right now, and I have not a lot of room in my garage with cars in there. And a lot of the other services, like when I Googled like 96-gallon trash can, there's a lot of announcements of other cities going to services like this. But they also seem to have an option of like 3 different size cans, like 96 being the larger, and then 2 other smaller options. Is that something that might be available in the future?
No, so we learned that lesson from the city of San Antonio. They offered multiple size cans, and it's problematic. One is because you always have to have excess cans in storage, which is excess money, excess space, and not only that, you figure on average we have 40 residents that move in and out a month on average, and that means 40 times a month we're having to go somewhere and possibly change out trash cans. It's a logistics issue. So we have one size. That is the big lesson that most of the cities learned from the city of San Antonio.
I didn't realize it was the city that had the store. I thought waste management.
Waste management stores them, but remember, for everything that we ask of them, there's a cost to that as well.
Mr. Casada, would you remind me, is the public hearing still open?
No, you closed the public hearing at 6:50.
What? There must be something that has generated this new ordinance. What is it we're seeing that is causing us to have to overcome it? Are we seeing trash cans in front of garages? Out in side yards? Or what is it we're seeing that we're trying to overcome?
Well, in an overview, it's part of the beautification process of the city. The large cans, the standardization of the new cans does help with that. But again, large cans sitting outside tend to, it's just not going to be the large cans. What we've experienced is when people have their garbage cans outside their garage door, you tend to see other things that are gradually placed in and around the cans. It becomes more of a storage area outside. So this will help remove that issue. But beautification across town is one of the main.
What will carports do?
What would what?
Carports?
What would carports do?
Yeah, there are areas of the cities that don't have garages, they only have carports. So they still have to hide them because their carport is open.
Yeah, it has to be out of public view, correct.
All right, we have further discussion among the members of the committee or
I have one more comment. So, and I believe it was in one of these meetings within the last couple of years. It was brought up by a citizen that they have a neighbor that they had complained about that was working on cars in their driveway and has piles of old tires and this and that out there. And a comment was made that we're not the aesthetics police. So are we becoming the aesthetics police? If so, if we're going to do that, then people who have knee-high weeds in their yard, they're not maintaining the curbs, they're piling up old tires, et cetera, like that outside. Are there going to start being more citations issued for this reason? Are we going to become the aesthetics police and take care of those kinds of issues for citizens?
Yeah, we currently have a code compliance strategy that is in place.
But it was a code compliance officer who actually said that they're not the aesthetics police.
Well,
So,
technically, no, we're not, but you can't have rubbish and excessive storage outside in your front yard.
Again, it goes back to the life, health, safety. Remember that we have to provide for a certain level of cleanliness and free from rodents and dogs and all other kinds of things that we have to do. Oil spills, leaked bags, all of that falls under code compliance. And while we may not, go back to what is ugly to one person is beautiful to somebody else, whether it's lawn art or something of that nature. But it does get to a point where if it affects the life, health, safety of the neighborhood and or the city or the neighbor, we address it.
All right, I'd like to ask for a motion on this item at this point.
I'll motion to approve PC 551 and ZC 228 per section 4-5-21 of the zoning code. The Planning and Zoning Commission has reviewed and considered the following proposed text amendment to the zoning code of the Code of Ordinances of the Universal City, Texas, Chapter 4-5 zoning, Section 4-5-71 to modify the fence requirements to provide residential trash enclosure requirements. Therefore, I recommend the City Council to approve PC 551 and ZC 228 related to the above text amendment.
Second. All right, we have a motion to approve and we have a second. Further discussion about this motion?
Kim, you mentioned that, or Michael, you mentioned that the alleys, if you continue to have alley pickup, that you don't have this requirement. The one area that I always notice is going down Kitty Hawk, right before you get to HEB, there's all of those houses that have rear garages, and many of them leave their cans out all the time. So that's still going to be allowed.
Yes, if they have alley pickup, yes.
Okay.
But we'll talk with them individually to see if there's some, we're aware of that. We'll talk with them individually to see if there's another way that we can help them accommodate by putting their trash cans inside. They do have such a narrow area back there.
And I think, to be honest, I think that would be, if this moves forward and people were building enclosures and continue to drive by those and see them out, not covered, I can see that it would be a dissatisfier.
Is there any talk of any subsidies or anything like that to help people afford these, or those that, I understand you can get the materials cheaper, but there's a lot of people that might be able to afford materials but not do the work?
No, we have not discussed that.
I've heard a number of people, individual homes that are going to have difficulty meeting this requirement. What is the procedure for a homeowner who just doesn't see how they can possibly comply with this to request to not be be subject to this.
Yeah, we can, if they reach out to us, we'll assess the situation, talk to them.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, can we get a vote, please, Mr. Casal?
Commissioner Day,
Nay?
Commissioner Fitzpatrick,
Yay?
Commissioner Garcia, Commissioner Hannon,
Yes.
Commissioner Svalberg,
Nay.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Nay.
Commissioner Hernandez,
Nay.
Commissioner Carlton,
Yeah.
Chair Jackson.
Aye.
It's a tie, 4-4. So that tie vote will move forward to City Council for a final decision.
And when will this be considered the city council?
They'll be considered at the November 16th City Council meeting.
So both issues are to the matter in the system, so they're meeting. Okay, I'd like to thank all members of the public for their participation. It says here we're supposed to do election of officers.
So I did check the last 3 sets of minutes, and I don't see like the elected any officers, so we can push it off to the next meeting.
So moved. All right, city manager, would you have anything to report?
Just wanted to remind the Planning and Zoning Commission that we have been sending out emails regarding concept plans that people have presented to City Council. You remember we have our new PUD process that allows them to do that. If you can make those City Council meetings to hear that presentation, you're very welcome to do so. It is always good to hear their first presentation. If they do decide to move forward, obviously they'll be at the Planning and Zoning Commission at some point, and you're going to hear it again. But that's all I have this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We're adjourned.